welcome everybody. We're gonna kick things off here with a little bit of fun. This is Treat Your Hemp Right, and you're in for a bit of a treat. Hopefully DQ doesn't have that trademarked anymore. But we're gonna talk about my favorite things today. We're gonna talk a little bit about disc golf, and that's gonna kind of be your analogy for all the seeding and seed stuff and emergence. And then we're gonna talk about hemp. So we're going to start with disc golf. My crew handed out a bunch of these discs to some lucky people, and you're all going to get a chance to toss in that basket right about, I don't know, 150 feet away. There's a couple main ways you can throw. You can throw a backhand. You want to follow through just like a normal kind of frisbee. Some people, if you're baseball players, will kind of grip it in here like this, and they'll toss it forehand, it's called. The reason we're going to do that is these discs have a whole bunch of different flight characteristics. So everybody's disc is slightly different. The first thing I always get asked when we're going out to play disc golf is, what makes these discs different? And so it's a lot like the two seeders we have parked in the background there. There's different methods. We've got air drills and planters. We've got different kinds of openers. So we've got our air drill there. We've got pillar laser disco style openers on the left on the Sarah drill, and then on the right on our flex seeder, we've got, what was this, hydraulic based seed master. Everything's hydraulic over electric on, sorry, oh, Borgo, sorry, my bad. So there are different methods of getting the seed in the ground, and there's different styles to the fertilizer shoots. So just like these discs, there's a flight plate on here, and so there's kind of four main qualities to this disc. There's a speed, the glide, the turn, and the fade. So some of yours actually have a number. Mine's got a number here, so it's got a speed. It says speed 4. That's mid. 1 speed would be really slow. So if you've got a thicker disc, you might have a 1 or 2 speed. If you've got a really thin, narrow disc, you could be anywhere from 9, 10, 11, 12 speed. And all that means is you're going to have, the higher the number, the faster you're going to have to throw that disc to get it to fly the way it was intended. So if you just throw it nice and light, every disc is going to crash off to the left. But if you throw it up to that speed that you can throw it, it'll go the way it's supposed to fly. The glide, that refers to how much it wants to stay in the air. So if you got a 5 or 6 number, it's going to want to float more than if it's got like a 1 or 2 is just going to want to crash into the ground. And that's going to help you get around obstacles, things like that. Next is your turn. If you got a negative number, it's going to flip over to the right. And then your fade is how much it's going to come back in the end. So I don't know, anybody got numbers on theirs? What do you got on the shark there? 4402. So that's a shark. It's a lightweight one. We got a bit of a breeze coming too, so keep that in mind. You're probably going to want to aim at the equipment, which I don't think you'll hurt the equipment. You probably shouldn't hurt the crop either. And so that is going to fade back at the end. If you've got like a negative number for that turn, you might actually turn it over into the wind, depending on how you start it. So there's lots of different ways. So anybody who's got a disc, get 5 or 6 up here. You can just come anywhere here, give her a toss at the basket, and then we'll kind of talk about those different qualities for the emergence. George's going to toss one.
So I got a 6-4 minus 2 too. So where should I aim?
I'd aim just about everything at the seeders there, and just kind of let it come back. Woo! All right, not bad. That's pretty good. So that's the wind at the end. You didn't hurt any hemp. You're safe. You can stay. Yeah, sliced it like the golf ball. All right. Hey, okay. We're gonna get better as we go here because everybody's seen a bit. Oh, it's going up. All right. Anybody else get in there tossing quick and we'll. Oh, lefty. Oh, didn't expect that. Uh-oh. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Hopefully nobody just kind of grip locks it way out in the crop there. We'll never get it back. Oh, we put it too far away. Oh yeah, whoa. Hey, remember where that one went. Oh, that one's got a lot of turn on it. Holy smokes. Wow. Come back. Not getting that back. You guys, these are good. So there's a lot of different reasons they're flying like this, right? Oh boy. Holy, yeah, I had a lot of discs out here.
Hope you keep.
Yeah, I didn't know we had this many. I think the best throw should get a prize. Except mine.
There
Mine
we
doesn't.
go.
We got one more. Oh no, she's trying to hide. You don't get to keep those. That's the prize. You can pick a disc. Oh, that wasn't bad. That wasn't bad. Okay.
Better be the closest.
You better get it in. Oh no! Oh, I went straight. I guess that's all right. I was hoping to get it close to the basket. That's almost better. Oh, that's fun. We haven't played in a while, so I'm happy with that. So yeah, there's all these different things, right? You'll notice they all flew differently. But funny enough, depending on how you're to aim each of those, you might get away with it. So you might kind of make a bad throw. You might aim it in the wrong direction, but because it's got a lot of fade coming back one way, it might go the other. I could take those discs, and if I threw that exact same shot that I just threw with all the discs that were here, they would all fly completely different. But I could also throw the disc completely different and get the exact same result and shoot it right through the field goal if I was that good. I'm not that good. But you could get it through there with every one of those discs as well, right? And so with our hemp emergence, I'm going to make the analogy, it's kind of the same thing. When we're planting our hemp, the emergence aspect is one of the trickiest parts we have. When we look at a wheat crop, nobody's really worried about their wheat emergence, at least as far as anybody I've talked to. But when you talk about establishing hemp and getting it off to a good start, we're getting like 30%, 40% emergence if we're lucky. And when hemp seed's expensive and you have all this different equipment technology, you really do want to get it off to a good start. And so that's kind of what we want to talk about. So I'm not sure from the crowd here how many people have grown hemp. Do I need to go over just some of the quick basics? There's kind of 4 main uses for hemp. Can anybody give me? They're the 4 F's. Throw them out there. Fiber, yeah. That's our other trial. Oil, yeah. We'll call that fractions. 2 more, grain, feed or food or grain, yeah. And then fun. Oh, that's the 5th F. I always forget about that one. Yeah. Okay, we've got fiber, food, feed, and fractions. So mainly Southern Alberta, somebody was asking me earlier, mainly Southern Alberta, we're probably growing lots of grain varieties. We've also got a fiber trial down there. And the hemp plots behind me, we got Vance and his crew from Sarda here today. They're growing these up in the Peace Country. We've got them in Vegreville with Jan's group, who's, I think, had a big retirement party today. And then these plots here with AFC and Indian Head as well. This is all an RDR funded project here. So we are going to start by just looking at these couple demos I have with the different planters that we use or the different seeding equipment we use. And then we'll kind of bring that back to the disc golf analogy here. So if you want to kind of sweep around this way, we've got some really weird demos here. They didn't turn out as well as I was hoping, but it's actually okay, I think. And I was talking to Jagger, the filler rep. He came and helped us get our air drill going. So on your sheet, there were some differences that we didn't expect to see. So in this row, all the way down, we've used the Ceraseeder with the pillar lasers. And we've got some different cultivations. So we had really wet soil here this spring. We waited. We usually don't plant our hemp like May 1st, although we can plant pretty early. We were waiting till about the 15th till some of our other key stuff was planted. And we had a lot of moisture. You can see we've got lots of big clumps here. We went in and disc this first rep. And we can control the down pressure a little more with the flex drill because we've got the hydraulics on there. And we can vary it as we go. We just took one pass. So you'll see in that 3rd rep there where it's no-till, I probably had the down pressure dialed in. Where we had it here, we actually had our down pressure too high, and you can see we get this big ridging, and it kind of doubles up. And so, this wasn't seeded as good as we should have seeded it, but it just kind of illustrates that, if we got one little thing wrong, all of a sudden that screwed up our entire plot there. And then with our openers here, I think it was a similar situation. We had really clumpy and uneven ground. As soon as we rototilled, our plots came up really, really nicely with that flex drill. And the way we had it set up at the time, it looked really good. The far end down there was all full of trash and almost nothing came up well. We would have expected to go in a little bit better, but we were set pretty shallow here too. And so this is just kind of, it'll show you, our best plot over there with the flex. That's where we had it dialed in the best. This is probably where we had it dialed in the best here. In order to seed under these different conditions or this different kind of, tillage strategy, we're going to have to make some adjustments on our seeder to do that. So getting it off to a good start. Hopefully we can do a more detailed discussion on the actual equipment at some point. I think that'd be pretty cool. So I guess to go into the emergence side here, thinking about for our nutrient stuff, we've got, right source, right rate, right time, right place, things like that. So just curious, throw some stuff out there. When it comes to emergence, specifically hemp emergence, what are those things we're looking for? Anybody?
Like the seed to soil?
Yeah, seed to soil. I think that's key. I think and how are you going to get that seed to soil contact? Like, what are the things you're going to think about?
Depth.
Depth, yeah. So that's like, depth is like a right placement. So for hemp, we really want 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. When we start getting too deep, it's going to have trouble coming up. I suspect in this clumpy soil, it's just really uneven. You can see, we've got some plants that are still cotyledon. This is probably like 2 inches down, and we've got some bigger ones that might have got lucky and they're 1/2 inch, and so really, really uneven in there. If we get nice even placement, that's pretty key. Anything else?
Seeding rate.
So yeah, seeding rate, right rate. So this is an interesting part of this next study we'll look at. In our grain varieties, we're typically going a lot lower seeding rate. In fiber, the seeding rate becomes pretty important, and we're usually seeding a lot higher than I think most farmers would want to, and that's to get that consistency and uniformity. If we pull up a few plants, you can actually already see any plant that's kind of off on its own. This will almost end up growing like a Christmas tree. So if I left this at the edge of the border here, this plant's going to get like this thick because it's got no other competition. And when you're growing for fiber, you probably don't want that because it gives you an inconsistent product when you're going in and processing it. So they'll want to have a nice uniform crop with lots of plants, nice close together. What else we got? Cross them off as we go here. Moisture, yeah. This was a tough one for this year. We delayed seeding this it took us a week longer to seed the trials than we wanted to. And partially that was because of this residue. And I was talking with somebody yesterday as well, where we had so much kind of residue on top, and when we got the moisture, it held it in. And we can look at that when we go look at the emergence or the trial itself here. And it was kind of interesting because we thought that the stubble, where we have tall stubble, would hold the moisture in more. But ironically, where we had really tall stubble, we could kind of had black soil or brown soil between that stubble. And where it had been chopped finer and shorter, we had less soil, less ground showing. And so where we had the shorter stubble, we actually probably held moisture in more because we were kind of pushing it off to see if we could come in and seed. And where we had tall stubble, we probably could have seeded sooner, which was kind of a weird thing for this year. Yeah.
What stubble do you think would be best to go into?
That's kind of what we're trying to figure out here. And I know we've had this talk with a bunch of people, like where'd Rajiv go? At their site, he was back on the phone with me for a week because they don't typically do a lot of tall stubble up in the Peace area, and you guys have the seed masters, right? Is that?
Yeah, we have a whole drill. We don't have a ditch drill.
Yeah.
So it rakes everything in. Now, when you have a tall stubble, it rakes everything. It looks like the drill would look like a big rake, and it brings everything on.
And so basically, every pass they made, there'd be a pile of
So-
trash sitting there. They'd have to lift up and clean off because it was just pulling everything out. Whereas even with our flex drill that we use here, for the most part, you can see we just kind of went in between and it cut in really nicely. So it's going to depend a lot on what part of the province you're in, what you're doing. Yes?
Is there any preferential from row following a hemp crop?
Yeah, I think so. When that big study that Yan did, maybe Maybe we'll get him to do a big poster or something for his retirement on that matrix study. I don't know if you remember that one. He had 7 or 9 different crops here and all planted on top of each other. I think for hemp, like as long as you've got, I think cereals were fine before and after. There was a few things like anytime you mix a novel crop in there, if you're trying to mix a quinoa or anything like that, you might have trouble. And it depends on what that use was. So if you're leaving a lot of stubble because you're just stripping the heads off and you're taking it for grain and you don't do anything with that straw, then you might have issues. But you can also bale all that straw up now and use it for whatever approved things. Like 10 years ago, I don't think you could use it for as much. You couldn't graze it. You couldn't do anything with it. So I don't know. Anybody know any other specifics, or trying to think of things you wouldn't want to grow after?
What about sclerotinia?
Well, sclerotinia is an issue. So I think probably being careful with brassicas and canolas. And the other one is we were using peas in rotation after, so we could get good kochia control. And then I think the first year we did it, we just sprayed with Odyssey. And Odyssey will hurt the hemp, but it doesn't really control it that well. And so we had, peas looking about like this behind you. And then 2 weeks after field school, you'd have hemp standing this tall that just shot up kind of after the long weekend because it wasn't really injured. And so that would be probably my biggest consideration, is just making sure you have a crop rotation that you can control the volunteers. Because when you're harvesting your hemp, it's kind of a sweet spot. Like it doesn't mature like a wheat crop where it's all brown and desiccated and you chop it all and you try and get 99% combine. It's kind of the whole plant is still pretty green and the head's starting to mature, and you find that sweet spot in when the time you're going to harvest it. And you may have some left behind, or if you wait too long and you get a bad fall wind or something, it can shell out really easily and fall to the ground. So
Mike, what's a good herbicide to control volunteer hemp?
I think most of the general broadleafs, like in a cereal crop, like 2,4-D or Florazalan, like any of those kind of main groups. The ones that probably aren't going to control it that you maybe want to think about. So obviously we can put edge down as registered. Bromoxynil is one that we use in research, like a half rate of bromoxynil, so that won't control it. Avidex won't do anything. Why am I blanking? Authority and what's the other fierce one? Pyroxasulfone, sulfentrazone and stuff. They don't do all that much on the hemp, so some of those pre-emerge aren't going to get it. You gotta get it with that better in crop, I think. Yeah, that's a good question. So what else did I have here? Oh, right source is one. So I mean, making sure you've got a good seed source, certified seed. When we first started growing seed, it was mostly like kind of bin stuff from Initech from their Salacia variety. So they'd send it to us and be like, yeah, germ's probably 70%. So when you're seeding 70% germ and you're getting 30% emergence, and like it makes it tricky, right? The right rate for the grain / fiber, and then timing. I think early versus late placement. Hemp is one of those crops they'd like us to seed it into a warmer soil. We've kind of seen some stuff where the earlier we can plant it, the higher our yield potential can be. And we've had some really warm springs here lately. This is kind of an exception this year. Like I'm in a hoodie. That's weird, to be in a hoodie at the end of June. But in a warmer soil, it's going to pop up in a couple days. So honestly, these popped up in 5-6 days, maybe even less in some cases.
So when was this seeded?
Well, this trial here, when did we do this one? I think the 23rd, May 23rd. These demos would have been about June 6th or 7th, so 3 weeks ago. Yeah. And
yeah, I get to do that. What about pre-seed weed?
Pre-seed weed control, yeah. So we can put edge down. That's registered, and that was kind of one of the first things they did way back in the 90s, I think, when they were getting hemp up and rolling. We've done a bit of work. Like I said, I think there's a few other products. They're definitely not registered. I wouldn't recommend them, but I think there's maybe some potential. It's just getting, the entire process of getting companies on board for that new chemistry. And I think, I can mention that for the seed treatment trial as well. I think that's probably one of the biggest holdups is getting something registered for hemp. It's usually got to run through this entire IPv4 system. It goes through the states, And with all the political stuff they've had going on, you know, who knows how the funding will continue for that. And all of their universities there, they've got this huge database of information that they use. And as in the Canadian system, we kind of pull from that info to get our stuff registered through Health Canada lots of times. So there's that. And then we also need a company to support it. And so for the seed treatment stuff, I think, yeah, there's a minor use committee sitting on. There's one company that's maybe looking at some things, but it really depends on whether or not, you know, it's worth the investment for them. So the need and everything, like we're trying to identify, you know, whether that need is there, whether we'll see anything, and then the rest is kind of up to them.
So I was going to say,
Yeah, good
with
question.
that, that's where it's nice that you can seed it later. That's why a lot of times I would recommend seeding it later.
Yeah.
So you can get that weed control prior to seeding.
Yeah, well, and that's one of those timing things, and it makes sense when we get an early flush of weeds, and you can go in and you just burn them off with whatever kind of standard contact herbicide you're using. That's our strategy for when we did quinoa too. Would be like leave it until the end of May because you get most of your weeds flushing. You could burn them off. You could plant it. You're usually time it around a good May long weekend rain, right? And you'll be good to go. At least get your best option. And hemp is one of those crops that, you know, most crops have a yield penalty. Some are pretty steep. You know, canola, once you hit the middle of May, you can end up with a pretty steep yield penalty. It's not as steep for hemp. And so I think a lot of farmers, when you're rotating 6 or 7 or however many crops, that's the one you'll push off the latest. But I have also seen that the yield potential is insane. Like if we were doing some seeding date work, and I think in Peace area, central Alberta, it wasn't as pronounced. Like they just don't have the option to go in and ultra early anything. But you know, I'd love to try like an ultra early hemp in March or April and see, you know, whether we can get 3, 4, 5,000 kgs a hectare. Because I think if you managed it right, I think it's got some interesting potential. But hemp is a baby, and like, you know, for given its namesake as a weed, and it'll grow like a weed, but it needs to get off to a good start. And so I think that's why we've been focusing on the emergence aspect of it. Yeah. I think that was most of what I was thinking here. How am I doing for time?
Just under 10 minutes.
Oh, 10 minutes. Okay, we'll switch over to the research trials here and then maybe cover a few more things. So we had soil conditions. You guys said moisture. I've also got, you know, the stubble side of things. So what stubble you're going into, like John asked, like going into a canola, maybe not the best because you're going to have trouble with those broadleaf. Cereal's generally the best because we can spray a Sure as well, or a Post, whatever, and control the grassy weeds. And then you've got the whole, I guess, kind of weed suppression, nutrient cycling thing. At this point in time, any little weeds popping up, they're going to get out competed. And the hemp, like, I think it grew, you know, 5 centimeters this week already. It wasn't looking that great earlier. And if you came back next week, it'd be this tall. And if you came back the week after, it'd be that tall. So it's really shooting up now. Yeah.
Back to the
Yeah.
what are the hemp acres?
Okay. The question was, in Western Canada, what are the hemp acres, and kind of categorizing them by those 4 Fs. Oh, okay. Well, I'll start with the easiest one, the fractions, because that's probably the lowest. So there was some like hemp's this multi-purpose crop, and one of the reasons we like it is you can potentially do multiple things at once, but you can really only do one thing well, right? So you kind of have to pick and choose. Are you growing for feed, fiber, food, or fractions? And then you might get an extra thing out of it. So for a while, I know there was companies growing for grain, and another company would come in after harvest and be like, perfect, you know, we'll take care of all your straw, we'll clean up your field. You know, there's maybe 2% CBD left in the crop at that time, and they're still trying to work that out. And so they'd come in, they'd bale it all up. You know, they had their little margin that they'd take, and then somebody else got that kind of byproduct. I don't know how big that is anymore. I'm trying to remember. I think 10,000 acres in Alberta is kind of where I'm leaning, and I think it's a lot more for fiber in central and northern Alberta, a lot more for grains down here in the south. I don't know the exact numbers, but we don't have a processing facility very close. So, you know, Bruderheim, Drayton Valley, Vegreville are probably the closest ones. You're trucking 6 hours or something like that, or whatever. So that's a challenge. But the rest goes out to Manitoba Harvest and out there as well. So grain's probably easier to ship than fiber, I guess. A lot less material to ship out. So yeah, thanks.
You need the contract for it, or you?
That's a good question too. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think if you're growing grain, you're going to want to have contracts. I've heard of people just growing stuff, but usually they're going to help with your seed, right? And
Yeah.
it's probably risky to do something like that because it's not a. I don't think it's on the general commodity market. Like I don't think you just drop it off in an elevator and be like, hey, you know, here's a whole bunch of hemp bales or whatever kind of thing. And I think that unfortunately has turned a lot of people off, probably from growing hemp. They've tried it once. They maybe didn't have the agronomy down. It was a disaster. They don't want to do it again, or they've done it without a contract, and or maybe stuck with bales for 3-4 years or whatever it was. And it's a challenge. And so, you know, I can appreciate that. I'm not going to try and tell everybody to come and grow hemp, but I think it's a pretty cool crop. And you know, once it fits in, I think we'll all fit it in. So we'll take a quick look at the trials here now and kind of show you what we're up to for at least this part of the trial. And then I'm going to have to make you come back next year and we'll talk about the retting trial and kind of pull all the straw apart and stuff. Well, I got to save some sample. So this is our kind of one of our main RR funded projects here. This is the hemp emergence trial. So we are looking at a bunch of seed treatments, and somebody had asked me earlier about the hemp seed. So I've got it up here. They said they had never seen hemp seed. They're telling me a story. This is just our untreated hemp seed here. Yeah. And then we've got a couple different seed treatments. This one doesn't have the coloring on, but this is Allegiance. This is metalaxyl M. And so the main pathogen we're trying to control in hemp is a Pythium species, and it'll cause this damping off in the hemp. And so what'll happen is you will have both natural self-thinning within the hemp, and then we'll also have some of these root rot type diseases. And you know, we're trying to see how effective these seed treatments will be within the hemp plot. We've also got, there's two others that we use, Apromax and Vibrant. So these have one and two additional actives in there. And the whole idea, I think you guys have this sheet. I think I gave you a pretty good breakdown there. Yeah, so we've got, within this study, we've kind of got our main objectives, determining the effectiveness on the pathogens, seeing if there's any improvement on the plant counts, and then kind of looking at those stubble height interactions on the emergence as well. So we got a few things kind of packed into the study. You can see kind of right behind Carlo here. Actually, maybe actually let you before you peek at this sheet. What are some of your observations from this study back here? What are the things you're noticing? This is where my crew gets points for answering, maybe.
Well, the heavy residue.
The heavy residue. So this is one of our main treatments. This is the stubble. So we had tall stubble in here, and most of it was standing. Some of this is from going through, some of it may be from soil sampling and other things, but it was mostly standing pretty straight, and we inter-row seeded through there. So stubble's a big one. What else? I see some potential. What's that?
It's uneven in its height in the stubble. But
Yeah, so there is some unevenness. That's probably our depth issue. That's probably that seed to soil contact, and just getting those rows closed back up. I was at like 80% down pressure to get this in the ground, which is way higher than normal. It was just heavy clay.
What's the difference of that?
So, well, I got a mark here. This is kind of weird, but this is our Salacia. So we've got two different varieties as well.
Okay, all
All right, so this is Salacia, and that's a rack variety. So this is the fiber. It's going to get a lot taller. And that's our grain variety down in that block. And then we've got the different seed treatments on here as well. So this first one, where's our untreated? I guess it's on the other end there, past it. So this is the metalaxyl M. That's the Allegiance product. We've got, this is a typo, I should say metalaxyl and fludioxonil. So this is also going to help control for rhizoctonia, all that kind of stuff. And then we've got our untreated right there on the other side of George. And so I think there's been a bit of a vigor effect. I got some prelim data from last year. You can see we got regular and tall counts. And our first count that we did early on in the spring, it's always less when we go back in the fall. That's that kind of natural damping off and dying off. Some of it probably from Pythium, some of it not. But you know, if we were to come in here, I was trying to find one that was really weak and dying off, and I wasn't having any luck earlier. But you know, you can imagine a little plant like this one that I pulled in. Oh, Carlos got a good one too. Is this one dying off or did it get snapped?
No, I broke it off.
Broke it off. You know, you can imagine these two are growing close next to each other. That in a few weeks, this one is just going to kind of fall over and die, and it just can't compete with that. And that's part of that natural self-thinning. So hemp will kind of find a way to get the ideal population.
Like in
So yeah,
plots that you're walking by here, you can see every once in a while there's a random plant that's like yellowing.
yeah.
Splotchy. Is that the damping off? Is that
No, that's the herbicide. So we put a half rate of bromoxynil to control all the broadleafs in here, and the Salacia is a lot more sensitive. That's the other thing on the herbicides is the varieties have wildly different tolerance, and so the Salacia is a lot more. If you look at the rack, like I don't think I see hardly any plants in there damaged at all. That's just part of the plant.
just seems kind of
Yeah. Yeah. If there's any more questions, basically all I wanted to show you. So we had a few other demos down that way that didn't turn out, but if you want to check them out with me later, I'll kind of show you what we were doing. We had some different depths, and I also did some IPM. We were goofing around, so if anybody wants to look at some hemp intercropping stuff, we'll check that out too. But if there's any other questions, basically just to summarize, you know, that overall, emergence isn't the be-all end-all of hemp, obviously, but it's just one of those key things, and there's a million different factors, and so sometimes one little thing throws you all off, and sometimes you get a good rain, and it doesn't matter. It washes away all your problems, as they say.
Mike, from your sorry.
Oh, okay.
I got cut off. Well, from your chart, it looks like maybe untreated, like treated seed, just doesn't seem to be making a vast difference in your.
Well, yeah. So I didn't put the economic chart on here. Like, I don't have stats on here for a reason. It's just our first year of data, and there's potentially maybe an increase in plants. And I guess I didn't throw the yield. The yield kind of looked the same too, where it looked like having those treatments, maybe 1 or 2 bushels. And then if your seed treatment's say $25 an acre, you're only getting 1 or 2 bushels more. You work out the seed cost, and you're like, well, I might have lost $20 an acre, or I might have got $60 an acre. So it's, you know, there's probably a payoff there, but until we have more of a big picture overview, it's hard to really say what we think's happening. And yeah.
So those numbers are from last year.
Yeah, these were last year's numbers. Yeah.
And last year, good spring.
We did have a different spring for sure. Yeah. So I'm curious. That's why we have those sites. I'm curious to see what happens this year. For sure. Like I said, it was a little surprised with the residue side of things, where I think we had probably less moisture in the tall straw, which is kind of weird. Yeah.
Moisture requirements for hemp.
The requirements, like somebody was asking me if you can grow on dry land, and I think if you get enough, if you 5-6 inches, you can still grow a hemp crop. It's just not going to yield high. Our first variety trials, you know, we get 500 kgs a hectare to 1,000 kgs a hectare dry land, but we can get 2,000 or 1,000 plus on irrigation, and I've seen 2,500 or more sometimes too. So the challenge with irrigation is we're displacing something else, right? So it's a challenge to maybe displace some of those really high value crops. Yeah. Thanks, Sean. I'll wrap it up. You can bug me anymore if you got questions at the break. Appreciate it. Did we get all the frisbees back? I think we were supposed to send you all out to get your own, and then we just got into it. I feel like, yeah, I think you guys picked most of them. But it's all good.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah, feel free to bug him about any hemp questions you might have as well. We're